Think about the last time you signed into an account. You typed your name, you typed your password, you slid the cursor across to a button and clicked, and then you were in. You were paying attention to the words, to getting the characters right, to not fumbling the login, but something else was paying attention to you. Not to what you typed, to how you typed it. The exact fraction of a second you held each key down before letting it go. The tiny pause between one letter and the next. The little curve your cursor traced on its way to the button, never quite a straight line, always drifting and correcting. None of that was ever the point of the login for you. For the system quietly watching, it was very nearly the whole point. Because the way you physically handle a keyboard and a mouse turns out to be a kind of signature, silent, involuntary, and stubbornly your own. The third kind of secret. Start with the strange idea sitting at the center of all this. A password is something you know. A fingerprint or a face is something you are. But there is a third category most people have never heard named. Something you do. The particular manner in which your body operates a machine. And it turns out this is measurable, and measurable with startling precision. Every time you type, you produce a stream of timings. Key goes down, key comes up, the next key goes down, each event stamped to the millisecond. Every time you move a mouse or drag a finger across glass, you produce a path, a sequence of positions and speeds, and little corrections. On their own, these look like meaningless noise. Gathered up and studied across thousands of small moments, they resolve into a pattern that is remarkably consistent for one person and remarkably different across a crowd. That pattern has a name: behavioral biometrics. The rhythm of typing. Take the keyboard first because it is the oldest and best understood. When you press a key, two moments matter: how long you hold it down before releasing, and how long the gap runs before you press the next one. The first is called dwell time, the second is called flight time. You never think about either, not once in your life, but they are astonishingly personal. Some people stab at keys and release almost instantly. Others rest on them a bit longer. The gap between an E and a D in a word your fingers know by heart is different from the gap between two letters they have to stretch and reach for, and the pattern of all those differences spread across every common pair of letters becomes a kind of fingerprint written in time rather than in the ridges of your skin. You cannot feel yourself doing it. You certainly cannot reproduce a stranger's rhythm without enormous sustained effort. It is habit, burned in by years of the same hands moving over the same shapes. The hand on the mouse. The mouse tells a similar story in a different language. When a person reaches for a button on the screen, the cursor does not travel in a clean straight line. It accelerates away, overshoots the target a little, corrects, curves back in, slows as it arrives. This is the signature of a real arm and a real hand, muscle and nerve and eye all working together with their own small imperfections. The exact shape of that curve, how sharply it speeds up, how far it overshoots, how it eases down into the final click, varies from person to person in ways that stay stable over long stretches of time. Some people are jerky, some are smooth, some always drift high and settle onto a target from above. It is not anything you decide or control. It is the plain physics of your particular body driving a pointer, and like handwriting, the quirks are consistent enough to recognize you by. The scroll and the swipe, then there is everything a phone adds on top. A touchscreen is a far richer sensor than a mouse because it feels not just where your finger is, but how much area it covers, how hard it presses, the arc of a swipe, the speed you fling a page and the way it drifts to a stop. The rhythm of your scrolling, quick repeated flicks against long slow drags, is its own settled habit. So is the exact geometry of a swipe, the angle it begins at, how it bends through the middle, where your thumb naturally comes to land. People hold their phones differently, reach across them differently, tap with different pressure, and the sensors packed inside record all of it continuously while you do nothing more unusual than read the news. Put the keyboard and the mouse and the touchscreen together, and you have several independent channels, each one a weak hint on its own, that combine into something far harder to imitate than any single one alone. Why a bot gives itself away. Now here is where it earns its keep, and where the defensive side of the story comes in, because this is one of the sharpest tools ever found for telling a human apart from a machine. Imagine a program built to log into an account and move through it. It can send exactly the right keys and click exactly the right buttons flawlessly. But watch how it does it. The keystrokes arrive with inhuman regularity. The same tiny interval between each one, no drift, no hesitation, none of the little slowdowns a tired or thinking human hand produces. The cursor jumps in a dead straight line from where it was to precisely where it needs to be, or it glides along a curve so mathematically smooth that no living arm ever drew it. Everything is too fast, too even, too perfect. A real person is gloriously imprecise, forever making and quietly correcting tiny errors. The absence of that imperfection is itself the tell. A machine gives itself away not by doing something wrong, but by doing everything a little too well, always watching, never asking. And the quiet part is that none of this needs a special test. It is not a challenge you have to pass, not a puzzle thrown up in front of your face. It is passive and it is continuous. The measuring happens in the background while you do entirely ordinary things, reading, typing a message, scrolling a page, filling in a form. That changes what it can be used for. A password is checked once at the door, and after that the system simply assumes whoever is inside is still you. Behavioral biometrics can keep checking quietly the whole time you stay logged in. It is the difference between a guard who glances at your badge once at the entrance and a guard who keeps a discreet eye on the way you move through the building all afternoon. The technical name for this is continuous authentication, and its core question is a subtle one. Not, is this the right password, but is this still the same person who logged in a moment ago? The password you cannot change. This is what makes it so unlike every credential you are used to. If your password leaks, you change it. If a card number is stolen, the bank prints a new one. Even a stolen fingerprint or face, as unsettling as that thought is at least a fixed thing you might in some way work around. But the way you type, the curve of your mouse, the rhythm of your thumb, you cannot simply reset. It is not stored in your head as a secret you once picked. It is produced by your body, the same way nearly every time, whether you want it to or not. You could try to type differently on purpose, but you cannot keep it up. Your habits reassert themselves the instant you stop concentrating on them. That is the strange power and the strange danger folded into one sentence. It is a password you did not choose, that you hand over constantly without noticing, and that you cannot change even when you desperately want to. The defense is, so how is this actually put to work, protecting people, and where should it stop? On the defensive side, it sits quietly behind the login as one signal among many in a larger judgment. A bank or a serious platform does not usually lean on it alone. Instead, the behavioral pattern feeds into a broader assessment, agreeing with everything else that says you are you, or raising a flag when the way a session moves suddenly stops matching the account's long history. If a login arrives with the correct password, but the typing rhythm is wrong, the pointer motion looks machine-like, the whole shape of the interaction is off, the system can quietly ask for more proof rather than simply trust the open door. And crucially, a well-built defense treats it as a hint that nudges a level of suspicion, never as a lone verdict, precisely because a single human being does not behave identically every time. Tired, distracted, injured, rushed, or simply using the wrong hand while holding a coffee. The arms race, and of course the moment this became a defense, it also became a target, and the familiar contest began. Once the people building automation learned that dead straight lines and metronome timing give a machine away instantly, the answer was to make the fakery more human. Programs began adding wobble to their cursor paths, curves, and overshoots modeled on recordings of real hands, and randomness to their keystroke timing so the intervals stopped being suspiciously even. The defenders answered by looking deeper, at whether the imperfection itself was convincing, whether the randomness carried the texture of a real nervous system, or just the flat, shapeless evenness of a random number generator sprinkled on top. A genuinely human pattern has structure hidden inside its messiness, correlations and rhythms and fatigue that are hard to counterfeit without truly understanding them. So the ground keeps shifting under both sides, each one studying the other, one trying to synthesize a believable person, the other learning to tell a real one from a very good imitation. The double edge, but it would be dishonest to tell only the flattering half of this, so name the other edge plainly. Everything described here is, in the end, the silent and continuous collection of biometric data about your body, gathered without any clear moment where you were actually asked, and often without you ever knowing it was happening at all. That alone should give a thoughtful person pause. And it cuts in a second way that is easy to overlook. A system trained on how most people type and move can badly misread the people who simply do not move like most people. Someone with a motor disability, a tremor, a hand injury, or someone using assistive technology, a switch, an eye tracker, a screen reader, will produce timings and paths that look nothing like the assumed average, and the careless system can read that difference as a bot or an intruder. The very same sensitivity that catches a machine can lock out a real human for the crime of having a body that works differently. A false positive here does not merely annoy someone, it can shut a legitimate person out of their own account with no obvious way back in. What it is really about. So here's the thought to sit with. Once the mechanics fade, we are trained to guard the things we can name and change, the passwords, the codes, the secrets we chose and can choose again if they slip. But the most personal identifier you carry may be one you never chose and cannot revoke, written not in anything you know, but in the small, constant, involuntary way your body meets a machine. Every key you hold a beat too long, every curve your hand draws on its way to a button, is a signature you are signing thousands of times a day without ever seeing the pen in your fingers. Used well, it quietly guards your account and catches the machines pretending to be you. Used carelessly, it watches everyone all the time and quietly punishes the ones who simply move through the world in their own particular way. The same habit is at once the guard and the gaze, and no one ever told you that you were writing it down. If this is the kind of thing you find yourself thinking about, the quiet machinery under the everyday internet, then this channel is your sort of place. There is no product to sell you here. It is just the systems, taken apart and explained by someone who has spent a long time on the inside of them. Subscribe and follow the rabbit hole. Next time we are going to look at the number you never see. A hidden score computed for you in real time the instant you try to log in, sign up, or check out. Quietly weighing everything known about you in a fraction of a second and deciding, before you have consciously done anything at all, whether you sail straight through, get handed a puzzle to solve, or get stopped cold at the door. You never see the number. You are never shown how it was reached, but it has already decided how the internet is going to treat you.